And in the meantime, colleagues, please type up all your questions so we can get through all of them. And I must repeat this again. There is no time for one-on-one interviews, as these people that questions need to get working on the plant. So ask all your questions and we'll have them answered right here. Thank you very much. Over to you, Jan.
Good. Thank you, Sikonati. Good morning to all concerned. The purpose of this briefing this morning is to provide a further update on current capacity constraints, as well as where do we find ourselves currently. To supply the evening peak last night, we once had to run again 20 open cycle gas turbines just to get us through the peak. And then I need to add that was together with stage 2 load shedding. Now, this morning at 9:20, our unplanned availability was at 15,334, with the planned unavailability at 5,505. So the total unavailability just under 21,000 at 20,839 megawatts. Although there has been an improvement in the capacity availability since yesterday, these numbers do not reflect the significant drop in capacity overnight, when 4 units, and those being Kendal 6, Dua 4, Camden 3, and Kusile 2, tripped, actually then removing 2,100 megawatts of the capacity from the system. Now, this necessitated the running of the open cycle gas turbines late into the night in order to top up the pump storage dams to have that capacity available this morning. Now, this morning at 3:20, the open cycle gas turbines were started up once again to support the system, and this was after it was shut down at about 00:30. So after 3 hours, we had to start up the open cycle gas turbines again. And needless to say, this is during the night time where the demand is relatively low. I decided this morning to give an idea of the logistics involved. Now, we are delivering the last few days 100 tankers of diesel to Ankerlig. So that is every day, 100 tankers of diesel. So that is 4 million liters a day. Now, between Ankerlig and Gerikwa, we are using 9 million liters of diesel a day to support the system. Now, at Gerikwa, we have an advantage because we have a pipeline that is feeding from PetroSA. But if you take the 9 million liters and you do your own calculation, you'll see that we are actually using a lot of finances, money currently to just top up from a emergency point of view the capacity of the system, which obviously is not sustainable. Now, Eskom and the independent power producers have 3,000 megawatts of open cycle gas turbines installed on the system. Now, should we run out of diesel at these power stations, this capacity would not be available to supply the demand and would necessitate a further 3 stages of load shedding to be implemented. Now, also similarly, our pump storage generation capacity is a little bit less, 2,700 megawatts. And if the dam levels were to be completely depleted, this would require a further 3 stages of load shedding. Now, the combined effect would be a further 6 stages of load shedding. So it is critically important to balance these emergency resources, together with load shedding, to ensure we manage the power system safely while keeping the stage of load shedding as low as possible. This morning, we have returned 4 units successfully back to the grid, those being the Juba 4, Kendal 6, Arnold 2, and Camden 3. We actually returned also Juba 4, but we had to shut it down again because of boiler tube leak. So what how does it look going forward? And Philip will talk a little bit more in detail about that. But we expect to return to service an additional 7 generating units to service by weekend. So it's important to mention that we then also have 16 units that is currently in operation and contributing to the capacity of the country that is running with risks. Now, 3 units at very high risk, and that total about 1,088 megawatts. Another 10 units, which we've classified as medium risk, 3,252 megawatts. And then we have 3 units also, but with low risk, totaling about 1,484. So while we have significant challenges with units that broke down, that is not available to assist with the capacity, we're also running, as I said, 16 units with risks. And what is concerning us is especially the 1,088 megawatts with high risk. Now, to limit the further use of open cycle gas turbines today and tomorrow, in order not to deplete available volumes to dangerous low levels and to create space to deliver fuel to these stations. And as I said, delivery at Ankerlig is by road, so it's tankers, and logistically it is very, very difficult. So unfortunately, because of what I've just explained, and to make 100% sure that we're not taking the diesel levels as well as the pump storage dam levels to a level that is critically low, we regret that we had to implement stage 4 load shedding at 9 o'clock this morning. Now, this stage 4 load shedding unfortunately will continue the way we see it up until Friday morning at 5 o'clock. Based on the units that we believe that will successfully return to the grid, we will then reduce the stage 4 load shedding from Friday morning to a stage 2 up until Monday morning. We then trust and we believe by then that we will be out of this very difficult situation that we do find ourselves. Now, we again do apologize for the very difficult situation we are placing the people of South Africa and the negative impact to the economy. However, colleagues, in order to protect and ensure the integrity of the electrical system, proactive implementation of load shedding is required. Again, I would like to thank the colleagues in generation as well as in system operations for the very hard work and trying their level best under extremely difficult conditions and situations. Colleagues, please keep focus and let's get through this very trying period. I would then like to hand over now to Philip Tekashi, our Group Executive for Generation, in order to provide a little bit more detail on the generation performance, as well as a look ahead towards the weekend. So thanks, Ikonati. Thanks, Philip. If you can then take over.
Thanks, Jan. Good morning, everyone. So I think Jan has covered in detail the units that we have lost, so I'm not going to go through them in detail, but just to say that over these last 3 days or so, what we are seeing is much more than what one would have expected. It's much more than what normally would be the case, and so that's why we're finding ourselves in this situation. Also, just to give that assurance that every trip, every load loss, it is investigated, and we try to come up with a reason for it, and we then address that. We sitting today, and as Jan has indicated, a few units that will be coming back, and today we're hoping 3 units, Camden Unit 7, Kusile Unit 2, and also Medupi Unit 3. So these units, we're hoping they will contribute particularly towards evening peak. And then tomorrow, we're hoping Unit 1 at Tutuka. So this unit has been delayed somewhat, so that unit should be coming back. And then on Friday, another big unit, Matimba Unit 5. That unit should be coming back. hoping to support the evening peak. And then on Saturday, it will be Matla Unit 5. That unit was also shut down earlier this week, so we're hoping that it will come back. And then on Sunday, it will be Camden Unit 5 that we are hoping to come back. So it's really been a very challenging period in generation, with a lot of people that are fatigued, that are working extremely hard to deal with this number of failures. Some of these units that have failed, they've just come back from outages. So you can imagine people have been working very hard, and then they bring the unit back, but there is no breather, and then that unit again needs some attention. So we're working on those as well. Just to deal with some of the issues which I'm sure some people are wondering about, again, in terms of maintenance, where are we on maintenance? We are doing the maintenance. So as Jan has indicated, we've got about 5,500 megawatts on planned maintenance, and last week as well we had about 6,000 megawatts on planned maintenance, and this varies from small or short maintenance to long maintenance or general overhauls. So that work is happening. We still have a huge backlog of maintenance that we need to deal with, and also as the plant ages, our maintenance, it needs to be enhanced. So it's not just a matter of dealing with what we know has failed, because sometimes we bring back units, they run bring them back from outages, they run and then they fail. And then we realize that there are other areas that we should have attended during those maintenance periods. So we are continuing to enhance our maintenance plans as these plants age and we have multiple failures. As we speak today, we have a risk on, as Jan indicated, on those units, about 8,000, in excess of 8,000 megawatts. So we are worried about that as well. So as we plan our maintenance, we are also going to have short-term maintenance to deal with those issues. The ideal, again, would be to attend to those issues now, before they bite us. But because of where we are, and because we've got a constrained system, we run with those risks, we make a risk assessment, we monitor, we run with the risk, and then when there is a gap, we then do that maintenance. But it's always sitting there, like as a risk, and it's something that we need to manage. We have said that this year is going to be a hard year, and it's proving really to be a very difficult year. One of the units, that is more reliable than nuclear at Kuber outage. That unit, because it's on outage and it's a big unit, obviously the rest of the system fills it because we have to make up. And our coal-fired units tend to be much more unreliable than nuclear. So yes, this year is going to be a hard year, and we are experiencing that. But I can give that assurance. We are doing all we can. We are working extremely hard to try and deal with the issues that we are facing at the moment. Thanks, Jan. Thanks.
Thank you, Philip, and thank you, Jan. Colleagues, Philip Dukashe is the head of generation. Jan Oberholzer is the chief operating officer. Now I go to your questions. Please ask a whole lot many more questions so as to avoid any inconvenience later. Terence Creamer of Engineering News wants to know, are municipalities responding in full to your requests for rotational cuts? Monde Bala, are you online? Can you take that question?
If he's not, I can take it. So Monde, I don't know if you're connected.
Go ahead, Jan.
Okay, thanks, Sigunati. Terence, yes, they are responding. Yesterday we did a reconciliation and we were satisfied that what we have requested has been implemented. So we thank the municipalities for their contribution and assistance. Thank you.
And quick, thank you, Jan. Next question comes from Ryan Brothel of Business Tech. Just to clarify Mr. Oberholzer's statements, do Would that be stage 6 load shedding at a worst case scenario with diesel and dam shortages, or stage 10 load shedding? That is stage 4 plus 6 stages. Jan, that's with regards to your statement earlier, should we run out of diesel?
Ryan, this would be in addition to whatever stage we have implemented. So should we be in stage 2 where we are now and we're running completely out of diesel and completely out of water, and we then have to implement load shedding, then it means that there's up to 6 stages of load shedding. So we will do whatever we can to make sure that we limit that. And this is why this morning, very early this morning, we took the decision that we rather implement stage 4 load shedding to make sure that we don't get close to the situation that we are running, that we actually have depleted all our water as well as all our diesel. We're also taking note of the fact that what is happening in, with Russia and the Ukraine, and the negative impact or the possible negative impact that may have on the availability of diesel volumes. So I trust that I've answered your question, Ryan.
Thank you, Jan. You have quickly tell us, and this is Terence Creamer, where is Andre Durita currently? Jan?
Yeah, I can take that one. Our chief exec currently is in Washington in the United States. So he is dealing with important aspects in terms of the transition of our organization. He is dealing with very important aspects in terms of our transition from the coal-fired power plant, which we have traditionally, to a clean energy in the future. So it's very important discussions that he has with World Bank and other stakeholders in America. But I'd like to deal, Terence, also with that question. We cannot expect the chief executive, and I say it with a lot of respect, to whenever we have difficulty in the operations, and specifically now within the generation space, to expect the chief exec to be available. So this is why Philip and myself are dealing with the situation. We understand fully where we are, and I believe that the board, as well as the chief exec, has the necessary faith and trust in our ability to deal with the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. I have a question from Mia Lindiki of Eyewitness News. It is raining in Gauteng and there is a storm in KwaZulu-Natal. Will the weather have any extra pressure on Eskom's capacity to keep up with the demand, given the current circumstances with Eskom already being under pressure? Jan, Philip, does the rain impact your ability to generate electricity?
Philip, if you want to take that one, please.
Yeah, so it does increase the risk, particularly if it's raining in the areas where the coal-fired power stations are, because you're dealing with wet coal and then you have to transport it. And we're also finding this with Medupi, with the open conveyor, so it increases the risk. But in all of these stations, we have a plan, and I think we did communicate that those rain readiness plans have really yielded the results. We're seeing much lesser issues associated with rain. We did pick up at Majuba with the previous incident, and that is being corrected and that is being addressed. But in most of our stations, we have the rain readiness plans, and those plans are robust. They have been tested, and I think over the last year, they have really proved to be successful. They have really served us well. Thanks.
Thank you, Philip. Just to clarify, in the areas that Mia has mentioned, the impact would possibly on teams in the event of severe floods or something, not being able, distribution teams, not being able to get to the faults to repair whatever lines might need any attention. But in Gauteng and in KwaZulu-Natal, the rains have no impact on the generation side. That is for coal. Thank you for that. Francois Williams, I think that's News 24. His question is, what is the current average running cost per hour of open cycle gas turbine unit compared to the 500,000 rands per hour of previous times? Jan, please tie that question together with Glory Sifago's question. She is from the SABC. She wants to know what will be the impact of the increase in oil prices on Eskom in terms of costs. That would be the OCGTs. Thank you.
Thanks, Huguenot. Thanks, Francois and colleague. The latest figure we received from the general manager of peaking RVC is 4,700 Rand per megawatt. So that's where we are, and it's close to about 700,000 Rand per unit per hour. So it's a little bit more than the 500 that it used to be. But I'd like to give some other good statistics as well. Now, if you take one of these open cycle gas turbines, at full capacity, it is consuming 14 liters of diesel a second. So by using that, you can calculate what 14 of these, 9 at Ankerlig and 5 at Gerikwa, if all of them are running, what is it costing per hour, Eskom in terms of just burning diesel. And we all agree it's not sustainable, and we need to get out of the situation. But this is where we find ourselves. For us, burning the diesel and have a financial blood nose is much better than, putting the country into a higher stage of load shedding. So then, in terms of the impact of what is happening in the world and what it will have on Eskom, I honestly do not have the information at my disposal. However, we are currently looking at a few things. We're looking at what is the impact of, should diesel become, it's like economic powers, demand and supply. So if the supply is becoming less, what the most likelihood will be in terms of the effect on prices. So we're looking at diesel, we're looking at fuel oil, and we're also looking at coal. So unfortunately, that crystal ball that we need to look in is not that clear, but we are making certain assumptions, and we're working at those figures to understand, to get a good feel for what most likely we can face. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Peter Tat Montauto is an analyst, an energy analyst. His question is, can you explain more about your OCGT budget in the fiscal year from April in light of the low tariff award and lack of hedges? Do you keep spending and cut maintenance or costs elsewhere, or is there a hard ceiling at these oil prices? I'm going to ask Caleb Kasim, the Chief Financial Officer, to answer that question. We did deal with the OCGT budget yesterday. And I just wish to also add this before you speak, Caleb, that Eskom buys its diesel directly from the refiners, Petro SA, Astro, forgetting the name, Astront, the company that used to be Caltex. So we get those directly at the market prices minus some discount for bulk buying. Caleb?
Yeah, thanks for that, Peter. I think the first point I just want to highlight is we do know historically the amount of allowance from the regulator for OCGTs in terms of load factor, as I stated yesterday, was around 1%, and to Terence' question yesterday, NERSA indicated that allowance is now, or we haven't seen the detailed reasons for decision, around 3%. And based on the historic average price, we would expect that to be around a 3 billion budget in the NERSA decision. Obviously, this excludes where the prices are currently based on the Ukraine and Russian war. But Peter, we working on a similar rand amount spend to what we will incur this year, around 6 billion rand. And at the end of the day, you are correct, it gets to a point that we only have so much liquidity to meet all our other operation as well as debt service commitments. So there will have to be trade-offs. We also have an appreciation of what the plant needs in terms of capex and technical outage capex, and that balance needs to be taken into account. Maybe the last point I just want to make for the audience, the OCGTs is 2,000 megawatts, and as Jan and Philip are stating, the shortfall that we experience is beyond 2,000 megawatts. So even if we had all the funds available, unfortunately the country will experience interruptions and some load shedding despite running diesel all the units flat out. So this is the challenge and the balance we are trying to create as the Eskom and for the country, as Jan has stipulated. Thanks, Sekonati.
Philip, thank you for that. Colleagues, I hope that answers the question adequately. Clyde Melinson wants to know, at what point in time will a full emergency be declared in order to activate a real emergency plan? Jan?
Thank you, Sekonati. Clyde, the NSR, the NRS 048 does contemplate continuous load shedding reduction, but we are not there yet. That would, as an example, be, continuous load shedding, say stage 2 for a ongoing period. However, this is not always necessary because what we're experiencing currently is sporadic load shedding. And we would not want to load shed the country, and that's important. We wouldn't like to load shed the country at all when we do have adequate capacity available. So just to repeat, NRS 048 do contemplate that, but that is for ongoing load shedding at, say, a level 2, and we're not there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Diane Hawker of Times Live Video wants to know, why is Eskom so heavily reliant on diesel supply? Is this a normal situation or is it caused by the breakdowns? Considering there are concerns about how much diesel is available, is Eskom talking to major diesel suppliers to get more diesel urgently? 9 million liters a day sounds like a lot, she says. Jan?
Yeah, thanks, Sekonati. 9 million liters is an awful amount of diesel. If you take when we order ships, that is usually, 30 million, maybe a little bit more than 30 million. So to burn that amount of diesel is, number one, unsustainable, and, the logistical arrangement is a nightmare as well. So have we designed and implemented these open cycle gas turbines for base load the way that we're currently using it because we shy on capacity? No, we haven't. It was always intended to be a peaking, and this is why it's part of our peaking portfolio, for peaking conditions, typically early in the morning and late in the afternoon when there's a lot of demand in the country. So it was never designed that way, but unfortunately because of the system that is not performing the way it's supposed to, for various reasons, we have to use it extensively. So that's where we find ourselves. So are we talking to the diesel suppliers, believe me, on an ongoing basis? I think, are we seeing the general manager picking whenever I phone him? He's already got the answer. I don't even have to ask the question. So there's an ongoing engagement, and there's a very good relationship between the suppliers of diesel and ourselves, and that's actually where I was yesterday as well, at Mossel Bay with Petro SA, and so was Avi. We are looking, and we will go to the market very soon to invite the supply of gas. We've already implemented dual burners a few years ago on all our open cycle gas turbines. So we are looking now at perhaps, and not that we will take away the dual capability of moving away from diesel, but that we would like to perhaps use to move over to gas, which is much cheaper, and perhaps logistically, currently a difficult situation, but in future perhaps not. So that's what we're currently doing. Thanks.
Thank you, Jan. The next question from François Williams. Please give us a full list again of all units currently out of service with reason for each outage, e.g. Medupi 3 boiler leak. François, we did email such a list yesterday, and as you do know, that list will keep changing. I don't know if you are able to, Philip, to give at the top of your head what list you may have currently, and of course we can again send that out. Let me repeat again, that keeps changing because something gets fixed and another unit breaks down the next hour or minute. Thank you.
Thanks, Konati. So what we sent out yesterday, it's a units at risk, and what we've communicated this morning is some of the units that have come out recently over the last two days or so in terms of forced maintenance. So what Francois is asking, yes, we can make that available. I will just need to compile it because it will look at all those units, even in terms of planned maintenance. So that we can do, and we can make that available today still. Thanks.
Thank you, Philip. Colin Gambi of Newsroom Africa says, the quality of maintenance of these power stations is clearly in question. Who needs to lose their jobs between power station managers or Eskom executive heads? Are you looking overseas for expert engineers who can maintain old and failing power plants? Jan, I'm going to ask you to answer those questions, but before you do, I will preface by telling Tolly and the people of South Africa what they already know. This year is the 15th year in which load shedding has been on the go. And this year, the team that leads Eskom, Andre Durator, is the 15th chief executive since 2007. So a lot of people have lost their jobs, come and gone. One thing has been left behind: load shedding. And the country needs to answer that question properly. When are we getting rid of load shedding? Eskom has clearly made its request for an additional generation capacity, new power stations to be built, while Eskom is doing what it can to maintain the failing power stations that are on average 43 years this year. Do you want to add to that, please, Jan?
Sikamate, I had a dip. I think we just went into load shedding here, so I missed the first portion of the question. If you can just very briefly repeat that, please.
Jan, I'm going to read Tolly's question again. The quality of maintenance at these power stations is clearly in question. Who needs to lose their jobs between power station managers or Eskom executive heads? Are you looking overseas for expert engineers who can maintain old and failing coal-fired power stations?
Okay, thanks, Sikunati. Now I know I have to answer the question. I believe we need to understand, how do you do reliability maintenance? It is a process that you need to plan it properly. And the way that we do it, and we've started doing now, is that 24 months before you are actually wanting to open the breaker to start doing the reliability maintenance on that unit, you need to start planning. And then also you need to have the money available for that outage. Now, on both of these, we were not in a position to, number one, to have the money available, the finance, although Caleb, our CFO, has assisted greatly in helping us and assisting us to do what we need to do and putting the money available. However, the planning, when we started reliability maintenance, it was 2 years ago. So when we said we're actively going to start doing reliability maintenance, we had COVID, which we had to deal with. So we then substituted reliability maintenance, which we were not ready for in any case, which I need to say, for short-term opportunistic maintenance. However, slowly but surely, we got ourselves ready to do the reliability maintenance. But it's important to understand that you need to plan it properly, that you need to have all the resources, including people, including finances, whatever. You need to have that and space. You have to have all of this available. And then when you open the breaker, then it's a question that you need to execute it, and then you need to make sure that when you execute it, you are successful. And when the unit is coming back, that it stays back. So our readiness when we started reliability maintenance for the maintenance was very low. It was 40%, maybe 50%. And we have set ourselves a target to be at least 80% ready. Now we're slowly but surely getting to that. So we have 80 units that we need to maintain. And it's not a question that if you have done maintenance on one of them, you don't have to do maintenance again. It's like a car. You do your maintenance, and in a regular interview, you have to do it again. So what makes it also extremely difficult is the capacity available and to match it to the demand of the country. When we said 2 years ago that we will embark now on the maintenance program, the reliability maintenance program, we always made it very clear that means at the time, it meant that we will take additional units that is required to meet the demand. We will take it off the system to maintain it. And that would mean that there will be less capacity available. And when we have a period like we have now, that your system is, and some of the units are unreliable and unpredictable, that you have the situation that you will find yourself in load shedding. So we never said that as soon as we start reliability maintenance, that everything is over and that you will then not having load shedding. We always said that the risk for load shedding will remain. However, as we move forward with the reliability maintenance program, that the risk will, reduce. So I would like to make that extremely, that's for me important to make that point. Now, yes, I think Philip, when he gave feedback right in the beginning, was talking about our colleagues that is working extremely long hours. And that includes Philip and myself. Now, I don't know what you did at 2:30 this morning, but I was busy working on the system. And then it's not to say that I didn't go to bed at 11:30. So a lot of our people are working long hours. We're under tremendous pressure. So it's trying times, and I believe the time is now to support our people. Not to say, please get rid of all. Because if you get rid of all, who is actually going to do this, who's actually going to manage the system? So I believe that, and then also Philip yesterday made it extremely clear that we've been asking now, and me in person have been asking the last 2 years for additional capacity of 4,000 to 6,000 megawatts, and it is still not on the system. So we are sitting with a system that has been neglected, that we haven't done proper maintenance. So we are dealing with it as best as we can. But we are going to find conditions and situations where we are now, and we just need to get through it. And we need to support our colleagues that is really trying their best, and not to have just an axe over their heads. Thank you.
Truly, I hope that answers your question about who needs to lose their jobs. Mariam Isa of EE Business Intelligence wants to know, is stage 8 the highest stage of load shedding? What happens after that, if that is the case? Jan, can we go higher than stage 8 load shedding?
Yes, I'm sure we can. We trust we will never be there. But beyond stage 8, Mariam, the system operator will instruct how many megawatts will need to be shared per province. So that's where we are currently. So when we're at stage 8, that's a decision that will be made then by the system operator. in order to protect the integrity of the system, and that we don't find ourselves with a high risk of any possible blackout. So that's the job of the system operator.
Thank you, Jan. And the system operator implements load shedding in order to prevent a blackout. Deneen Erasmus of Business Day. Do you want to add something there, Jan?
No, you were spot on, Sikunati.
Thank you. The Business Day's Deneen Erasmus wants to know, do you have an idea what the average energy availability factor has been for the year so far? Has the maintenance backlog increased during the last 2 months? Has Eskom has previously said that, let's repeat that. Eskom previously said that about a quarter of plant maintenance project for 2021-2022 would be deferred to the next year due to financial constraints. Has the amount of maintenance been deferred increased? I hope that was clear. Jan, I shall repeat that. Philip?
Can I? It's fine, Sikunati. Thanks.
Thank you.
Take it. So in terms of energy availability factor, as we stand, we're sitting at about 62.2%. That is the total system. So it definitely is a challenging year. It's nowhere close to where we would like to be. In terms of the maintenance and where we are, yes, we have deferred some outages. I think we did communicate previously that if funds are made available late, then it means that we are not ready for the start of outages. And I would rather we defer those outages, because you will take those 90 days of outage, you are not ready, your unit is, you're not likely going to be addressing all the issues that need to be addressed during that outage. You are likely going to battle coming back afterwards, and we've seen that repeatedly. So we are driving for higher readiness when we start outages. So yes, we have deferred some outages because, based on our assessments, we were not ready for those outages. I would not say that it's a quarter. I can provide exactly which units. I do not really think it's as high as a quarter of all the planned outages, but certainly it has impacted us, and we have delayed some of the outages. Thanks.
Thank you, Philip. Anton Meyer from Pretoria FM wants to know, how much electricity are we currently exporting to the Southern African Power Pool? And is there any options to import electricity from neighboring countries, given the increase in diesel costs? Jan, are you able to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that. Thank you, Anton. Currently, we have two contracts. The one is a firm contract, and the other one is an unfirm contract with, our neighboring countries. Now, whenever we find ourselves where we are now in a load shedding situation, it may be even stage 1, we then stop the export of power to the unfirm, so the non-firm contracts. And then for the firm contracts, we then reduce per stage, 5% per stage on those exports. So that's the way we currently deal with it. However, we also need to understand, and it's very delicate, and that is usually a decision that is made by the system operator. And usually these exports are very small compared to what capacity that we need and utilize within South Africa. So one also need to understand that if the stage of load shedding is a bit high, one cannot just cut off a relatively small country, the same that you will do for a small town. But that is a decision that is made by the system operator. But we are religiously then implement unfirm. When we have load shedding, we stop the exports, and then at every stage it's 5% reduction. Now, your question on, is there an opportunity to import power? unfortunately, it is very limited at this point in time. We are getting power from Korabasa, but for the rest, we are actually exporting. So it's making it difficult, Anton, to get some of our neighbors to export to ourselves. So that's unfortunately where we find ourselves. Thank you.
Thanks, Jan. Just to add to that bit, only Mozambique exports power to South Africa. The rest buy from us, and their capacity really is very small. For example, Zimbabwe does not consume more than 1,000 megawatts, or does not have more than 1,000 megawatts of capacity, so they don't have the opportunity to export. Just as an example, Lesotho even less. Graham Bell of Tech News wants to know, once this current crisis is over, do you have a load shedding forecast for the rest of the year, especially considering that we are moving into the winter? Jan?
Thank you, Ziganati. Graham, yes. We do have an outlook, so you're right. The focus now is to get over where we are, but it doesn't say that this is consuming all the focus and attention. The system operator is, together with our production unit in generation, in constant dialogue to have an outlook on, and obviously our colleagues in transmission as well as in distribution from customer point of view, to have a good outlook on what most likely the demand will be, given certain assumptions, and then what the capacity will be. And then usually the production and generation will come and say, we need to take unit A, B, C, or whatever the case may be during that period, and this is how they balance. So the outlook, and I'm very careful in saying this, but the outlook is much more positive than what we're experiencing as we speak now, the stage 4. However, the generation system, the unpredictability and unreliability of the system sometimes make it extremely difficult, like how we find ourselves now. When we ended the week on Friday, we never imagined this is where we will find ourselves 5 days later. So the risk obviously remains of load shedding remains there. And what Philip has said earlier, to have a sustainable 920 megawatts, 1,000 megawatts of Cooper Unit 2 that is not available is making it extremely challenging. And this is one of the reasons why we decided, to postpone the steam generator replacement, because the risk of overshooting the outage time and bringing that unit back was quite high. And if you then find yourselves, when you plan a production and to have an outlook on what the demand will be, and you find yourself all of a sudden that you are overshooting, or you're out by a month or 2 months or whatever the case may be, then definitely we're going to find ourselves where we are now, burning a significant number of liters of diesel, and we will be going into load shedding, because that is a way that production has planned units to be maintained. So I trust that has assisted you.
Thank you, Jan. Philip, here's a question for you from Anthony Slavet of Rapport newspaper. How many units are currently running at Tutuka?
At Tutuka, currently we have 2 units running. We're hoping to go to 4 units towards the end of this week, Saturday, Sunday, as indicated earlier. One of the major issues at Tutuka is demineralized water availability. So there are plans to catch up with the work that was supposed to have been done in terms of refurbishing our plants at Tutuka and make sure that that plant is available. So that is constraining us at the moment. And then we have other plant issues at Tutuka. But to answer the question, short answer, 2 units. And towards the end of this week, we're going to 4 units. Thanks.
Thank you, Philip. Jan, Narisa Subramani of the Citizen newspaper wants to know, what is the condition of the OCGTs in terms of maintenance? Has maintenance happened on these units, given that Eskom is so reliant on them?
No, thanks. Narisa, I can give you the assurance that RV Singh and his team are giving the necessary attention. They make sure those units are maintained whenever it's due for maintenance. And we need to make sure those units are always, when you turn, the ignition to when you need those units, that it's actually available. So I can give you that assurance that we are spending a lot of time RVing these people, these colleagues, to maintain those and make sure that it's available when needed.
Jan, do not go. Mariam Isa of EE Business Intelligence wants to know, can you provide details of how gas will be provided to Eskom, given the lack of extensive infrastructure for that at present? Where would it come from? When might it come online? And how much are you hoping to get?
Thanks, Ikunati. Mariam, that's a good question. What I referred to earlier, that we would like to, also as a primary input, to move away from diesel as the only primary input. So we will be going out to the market, and we will request gas at a certain quality, at a certain volume, so within specifications, at the fence of Gerikwa and Ankerlig. So whoever will be successful, where they will find it at the qualities and the volumes that we need, obviously within the price that we agree, will be their responsibility. Now, it doesn't take away, there's another, so that's Ankerlig and Gerikwa, but we're also currently looking at other opportunities for gas power. So we have an opportunity at Richards Bay that we are looking at. So we also need to repurpose the power stations that will come to end of life, like Kumati during the latter part of this year. And we are looking at opportunities to generate electrons by using gas. So the question that you ask, we don't know. Because you're 100% right. There is not sufficient infrastructure currently in the country. So, but those, following those opportunities and talking to the suppliers of gas is an ongoing process on our side. It is also where I have been yesterday, as I said earlier, at Mossel Bay Petro SA, to discuss other opportunities that I do not want to talk about now. So, but it is a challenge moving forward. Thanks.
Jan, Edward Bottomley of Red Intelligence wants to know, and he's addressing the question to Caleb Kasim, but it is yourself that spoke about Andre's business in Washington. Can Eskom give more details on Eskom's directors' meetings in Washington? Does it relate to the existing World Bank loan and commitments? Or is Eskom seeking additional financing from DFIs and others? What other parties is the CEO meeting? Jan?
Thanks, Sikunati. Yeah, I do not want to comment on behalf of my boss, but I've got another boss that is acting now on behalf of Andre. Caleb, I don't know if you want to make any comments. Otherwise, if we cannot make comments, I'm sure, when the GC is back, from his international visit, that he can address yourselves and talk about what he has been doing. So, Caleb, I don't know if you have anything that you want to comment.
Jan, thanks. I don't have access to Andre's itinerary and all his meetings he set up, so he can respond when he's back. I don't have access to that. Thanks.
Thanks, colleagues. I have skipped questions from Mariam Isa that have just been answered about the energy availability factor. And Clyde Madison wants specifically to know that EAF for the coal fleet. Do you have that detail, Philip? Excluding nuclear, what is the EAF? Please.
Yeah, I will check in detail, Sikonati. Sorry, I did not check. But we're sitting at around, I think about 58-59% on the coal fleet.
Thank you. Roger Lady says, we understand that old power stations can be unreliable, but why do the new build stations keep failing? Why does Medupi and Kusile keep failing? Jan, Philip?
So maybe I can start and maybe Jan can add. So we have communicated a number of design issues with these power stations, both Medupi and Kusile. So that is the one. Largely those have been identified and some mitigation has been implemented, and that seems to be working. If you look at how well Medupi is performing over the last couple of months since the implementation of these, you'll see Medupi is doing well. You know, on some days they are running with 0 partial load losses. So this is, you know, they are able to run at full load. We are, and Kusile, obviously, it's coming along. The other reason for failure at new power stations, again, this is not a new phenomenon. It was experienced when Majuba was done, and I was there. It was experienced when Kendall was done. You have what you call a bathtub, failure effect, where you have a number of failures after you synchronize and you run a power station, and then you deal with those issues as they come up. This is new plant, configuration issues. It could be incorrect specification of material. You deal with those issues, and then your performance improves. Now at Medupi, what we are seeing, in my view, is that improvement starting to take shape, and that's why Medupi is currently much more reliable. Kusile, we still have a lot of sorting out to do. You recall that Kusile is behind Medupi, and for quite some time they've been running just one unit. So those are some of the things that are hitting Kusile. In addition, Kusile has got a FGD plant, which is the only one of its kind in the Eskom fleet, the only one in the Eskom fleet. And we still have a number of failures also associated with that plant that we need to resolve. And then on both stations, now and then we see failures that one would have expected much later in the life of a new station. We're seeing those happening early. We have now commissioned engineering to look at those so that we have a fuller understanding, because those are concerning, so that we have a fuller understanding of what exactly is going on, and then we can deal with those. So I think, Sikonati, those are the, maybe the 3 issues that are impacting the newer power stations, and some of them have been resolved. Thanks.
Thank you, Philip. Jan, I take it you have nothing to add to that.
Nothing, thank you.
Let's get to our last question for the day. The time is a minute before 11 o'clock. We have been at it for an hour, colleagues, and we have tackled all your questions. Roger Liley has a follow-up. I see there is a raised hand from Mariam. I'm going to read your last comment, Mariam. Roger wants to know if you have postponed the steam generator replacement. Are both Quebec units still operational today? Roger, only one unit was switched off on the 18th of January for the refueling and regular maintenance, as well as the SGR, and that unit is returning in June. The other unit is still on for about 130 days today since its last refueling outage. Don't have anything to add to that, I can promise you. Mariam Isa wants to know if those units at risk information is available on the website. No, it is not, Mariam, on the website, and we have made a commitment that we will distribute that information today on email to everybody about the units that are at risk. Jan, do you have any more closing statements. Philip, anything to add, please?
No, I think we had a good session. Now, needless to say that we haven't covered ourselves in glory, over the last few days, and we really regret to have implemented load shedding stage 4 this morning. But I believe during the discussion, I trust that it was really clear that why we had to do it. And colleagues, we really do understand the mandate that we have in order to supply electricity to the country, and we take it serious. But we find ourselves with a system that has been, or that is unreliable and unpredictable. So, I'm never going to blame anything of the past. This is where we are, this is what we are dealing with, and this is what we need to solve. Because that's what the economy and 60 million people of the country need from ourselves. But I would just like to re-emphasize that we have extremely committed and dedicated colleagues that is trying their utmost to deal with a very difficult situation that we find ourselves. And I really salute them for what they're doing. So colleagues, keep at it. We'll get through this. So Sikunati, thank you for again arranging today, and for the colleagues that have connected, thank you for your very, very valuable questions. It is sincerely appreciated. So thank you.
Jan, before you go, are we holding another briefing tomorrow, or will update the country as the situation develops at 10 a.m. tomorrow?
Sigunati, I would suggest that if anything changes, that we have a briefing. But maybe you can check with our colleagues. But we have now communicated that stage 4 will continue till Friday morning at 5. So should anything, sort of happen and changes, I believe then we can communicate. Otherwise, I would suggest that we stick if what we have said stays the way we said.
Thank you, Jan. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attendance, and have yourselves a nice day.